Dun it, dun it, dun 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 it. Weeps.
Okay, right. So I'm Matty with SCD.PlayGames, and I'm gonna paint a Games Workshop pink horror today. Don't really claim to be an expert at it. Some of this is kind of discovery along the way, but I've had some success past. Starting with some white pink horror based models or primed models, and using a little bit of Army Painter shade red tone on them. So that's what I'm going to do today. Just going to start with a white model and use it kind of like a contrast paint, but not really, going for the full contrast effect here. Basically, just trying to get this like all over the model. It's going to come out a little bit darker than we want. The idea is that we're kind of, setting the shades in first, and because, we want pink to be fairly vivid, but still have a pretty, rich color to it. I figured starting with a white model and just doing straight red wash on it was a good way to go. And then we're going to go after this and kind of dry brush it to get more of a pink feel to it. You don't want to go overboard with it. It's kind of easy to go overboard with the wash, and it'll like pool up in certain areas, and we are going to get a little bit of that on this model. Once you go in with a kind of heavy dry brush over it, it's not going to matter too much in the end. I don't remember why I started doing it this way. I think it was just because I was lazy and knew I already had to wash it anyway. I didn't really want to have to add a base coat to it as well for something that would be quite a light model. This guy's one of my favorite pink horrors. He's got really beefy arms for some inexplicable reason. There's all these like regular sized arms that they come with, but there's this couple of beefcake arms they've got in there too. So if you're wondering what I got the model sitting on, blue poster tack, because I'm really non-committal with my models. Until they're painted, I don't really want to base them, just, so I can kind of pick and choose a base style that I feel matches them a little bit better, or maybe do some wacky painted bases. So until then, sometimes I'll still play them, but I'll play them with a little bit of poster tack holding them onto a temporary base until I have a permanent home for them. I think part of the reason why I started doing them with the red tone on white was also because if I started painting them pink already and then I used a little red tone afterwards to get the shadows in, I found that it was really making them a bit, I think, too dark and kind of grimy looking. And I know it's grimdark and all, but I felt like Tzeentch Demons in particular don't really need to be dark and grimy. They kind of need to be bright and vivid. Since I was already kind of putting a lot of pink back over the wash to compensate for the darkness, just kind of started skipping that first step of pink and found it worked better. What I like about doing this as well is, like, already, with pretty minimal effort, you kind of got them close to the color you're going for anyway, but you're getting really nice definition on all the muscles from the get-go. For small models like this, it's always nice if you can get the detail showing really well. You just gotta go slow here, because if you over-apply it, it gets kind of weird. I think I want to do the tongue in a different color too, so I'm probably not gonna put any red down on that. Same with this sort of beak thing he's got going on. I want to kind of make that pale. Don't think I missed anything, so now we just need to wait for this sucker to dry a little bit, and we can start dry brushing some pink. Yeah, you can see some of those areas where it's pooled in a bit extra. Don't really want to let too much of that pool, but once it's started drying, it's kind of hard to get off. So, you don't really want to drag your paintbrush through it so much. Kind of dip it in and suck a little excess out without wiggling the brush around too much. It might help. You don't need to do this. It just helps it dry faster. Alright, shouldn't be too much longer. And then we can start dry brushing some actual pink on. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of dry brush it a little bit with the Watercolors Pink 3, so that will kind of be like a base coat, but yeah, again, without really dry brushing it, it's going to be a little bit thinner, so hopefully we'll keep a little bit of the brightness that we have going. Then I'm going to do a little bit like lighter dry brushing with Pixie Pink from Army Painter, and then probably do some touch-ups and edge highlights with Watercolors Pink 1, just to give it that last little bit of brightness there. So you know what, in the meantime, I think I could probably go ahead and get started on his tongue. I think I'd like to give him a blue tongue. I got deep blue from Army Painter, so I'll use that one. So I'm getting my brush a little bit wet here because I want to get a little bit of water in this deep blue, but not a crazy amount. We're going with a deep blue, I guess, because I want to kind of contrast how bright the pink horror is going to be, and I'm still going to make the tongue quite bright on some of the edges, but I do want it to look a little bit more significantly different, I guess. Again, I'm not really an expert, so I'm kind of winging this stuff as I go. So if you find a better way to do it, please let me know. You know what? I think I want to do the whole back of his mouth in this blue. He's got like an extra tongue in there. So then he's got some feathers on the back as well, and I'm kind of planning to do like sort of a turquoise teal with them. But again, I think a deep blue is a really nice way to start those colors out. I quite like painting feathers. I don't know why. They're just kind of fun to paint. A whole lot of real-world examples of really bright and vivid feather patterns out there, so you know you got a lot of options to choose from when choosing a feathered style you like. So we're going to go back over and do those again in a minute when they're a bit drier. Mostly because, you know, we're doing fairly thinned out blue here, so that we don't get really thick paint filling in our detail. You know, it gives it a smoother consistency, as Duncan says, too thin coat. So in the meantime, while those are drying, I can go back over and do the tongue, which is dried off. Sometimes, I don't know, certain colors or certain areas, I just feel more comfortable going like super thin and doing maybe even 3 or 4 coats, especially with certain paint styles, like, you know, yellow paints and white paints. Okay, we got our deep blue down, and looks like our pink's still a little bit on the wet side here, so I think might as well go ahead and get started on the little bit of the beak that he's got going on there. I don't like this to be maybe fairly vivid as well. A nice orange beak would be pretty good if I could pull that off. So, I think I'm going to start out with some 11079 burned orange, or burn orange. Gotta represent Tzeentch. You don't have to go super deep in the inside of the mouth, but it's always good that, you know, think usually when you kill your models, you're gonna knock them over or lay them over on the table, and at that point, people are gonna see the undersides. You don't have to like go to crazy detail and highlight the undersides, but it's at least good to make sure you got a base color down there. Again, being Tzeentch Demons, I kinda like to go a bit brighter on the eyes. I think I'm gonna go for some demonic yellow from Army Painters here. Doing this one before we start dry brushing because get a little messy. We're already going to dry brush some pink over the eyebrows here, so at least we can paint in the direction of the eyebrows instead of in the direction of the beak, so we can get a little bit more stability. He looks a little angry, a little cartoony, honestly. So I don't want to do the jewelry and the adornments that he's wearing before I dry brush him. Mainly because those are going to get a little bit discolored when he gets a dry brush, but I think I can at least do these 2 little bony protrusions on the side of his head, maybe his teeth and his claws, and Army Painter skeleton bone. So skeleton bone can sometimes come across like a bit chalky, so with this one I do really like to go extra thin on it. I do probably 3-4 coats just to be on the safe side, because otherwise it has a tendency to kind of get a bit streaky. You know, even going super thin, I kind of get that effect sometimes. Better to go thinner and just do it multiple times, and eventually the streaks kind of even out and disappear. Particularly after you shade them and dry brush them, they do look a lot better. So these other claws, you see some of them in the middle, the big ones, I'm leaving them alone. And that's because to me they really look like finger jewelry, and I think that's the intent. So I'm going to do those probably in like a copper color. I really like the idea of doing them in gold, but I have a Tzeentch and Thousand Suns army, and the Thousand Suns are quite gold heavy. So to compensate with the Tzeentch Demons, some of them get gold if they're important, like a Lord of Change, but otherwise I try to go with copper, so there's at least a little bit of distinction between the two. So he looks pretty vivid and cartoony right now, and this is that like awkward teenage stage, kind of getting the idea of what it's supposed to be, but still just, it's not fully finished yet. You should be proud of any paint job you put down, because that's time and effort. And it looks to me like the red wash is finally dried, which is that really time-consuming part of this process. So let's get started on the dry brushing. Getting a little bit of Warcolor Pink 3 out here, and then basically just kind of going in here and like smushing it into the bristles, and then rub a bit of it out, and then on a paper towel get kind of like vigorous with brushing it out. You really want to get like as much paint out of this as you can. Push it all over, because the whole purpose of dry brushing isn't to put like a thick coat down. It's so that when you come at your raised bits at a bit of an angle, that you'll deposit some of the paint that was inside. And then basically we're just kind of doing this for the most part in a downward motion, because we want to keep any of the underparts a little bit darker. And we're just gonna go over all this pink and start to slowly lighten it up. You see why I said I like to save the these little bits of jewelry and stuff for last, because those are gonna get all kinds of pink. Again, the underparts you don't want to dry brush these parts too much, but you know, if you find a spot where some of the red pooled a little bit earlier, it's good to go ahead and get the brush on those parts anyway. One of the parts I like about doing it this way as well is if you're not kind of like perfectly smoothly applying base coats and all, creates not a necessarily patchy effect, but a slightly different effect, which kind of I think looks slightly more chaotic as well, which is probably really good for the ever-shifting, mutating demons of Tzeentch. And now we're going to put some Army Paint or Pixie Pink on. That's the War Colors pink one. And this stuff I'm really gonna kind of just focus on the edged bits a bit. So I'm going to go back to the Pixie Pink, and I'm going to add some Army Painter Quick Shade Wash Mixing Medium. So that's Army Painter Hydro Turquoise. A little water on the brush so that I can thin it out. And then when I'm going over these feathers, I don't want to really go into those cracks that we already got in. Then I'm gonna take Elemental Bolt. So this stuff, I really kind of just want to get like on the edges a bit, not really all up on each of those feather pieces. This is just kind of to bring some of that deep blue color that we put in earlier back and help make the brighter ridge more pronounced as well. So then, while that's drying, I'm going to move over to the tongue, and probably I think I'm going to wash this in blue too, just, you know, get a wash on it now. And I'm probably going to do Void Shield Blue from Army Painter to kind of get the highlights on that. So that's coming along, and I think actually I'm noticing that little spiral in the beak. I want to call some more attention to that. So I'm gonna so one thing I do notice is I think I went a bit heavy with my glaze there, and I'm gonna have to re-wash it, but I don't want to do a really thick wash and then have to like highlight back up again. So since you can sort of already see a bit of the red underneath it, I don't think I need to go heavy. So I'm gonna mix some more of this Quick Shade Wash Mixing Medium back into the red that I have here. So the wash mixing medium is, it's kind of there to help you dilute your washes without like losing the wash consistency. so you can reduce some of the overall color impact of it without changing the manner at which it cools and dries too heavily. And you know, I really don't want to put too much of this down, because then I'm going to have to wait around for it forever again. So I'm going to get a little drop of lava orange down. I'm going to use a little bit of barbarian flesh as well. So the feathers, we're going to go back over those edges that we already highlighted and kind of then washed dark again. We're just going to, again, do the same thing, but a little bit lighter this time. Really, even more than before, focusing on the edges, just so we don't push this highlight in too far. So I'm going to use some mummy road. So I'm using a little bit of white in to just kind of hit up the parts of the shafts here that are closest to the bodies to make them a little bit more distinct. And then like really just kind of on the big edges that feel like they catch the most light, we want to do a little bit of white. I just find that works better. So, alright, we got some silver. So we're going to do some of the silver stuff first. So, what do we got? We got a little silver band here. You don't want to go too aggressively in, because then you'll kind of take away that pink shadow that you put in there earlier. Or that pink-red shadow. So, go in, but try not to push it all the way to the edge. And if you need to do 2 or 3 coats of this stuff, it's not the end of the world. I'm a big fan of like green and emeralds, so I'm gonna do jade green first. And since I got 5 colors, I'm not gonna do like 5 gems. I'm not gonna do 5 different colors. I think I'm gonna do 3 different colors. So I'm gonna use my green here twice. So I think I want the green on this bad boy here. And this bad boy here. And then we got another color that we need. So I think sapphire blue is probably a good one because it's like legitimately a gem. Sapphires are actual gems, so why not? So this one, since I've already got a lot of blue going on, I think I really only want this on one of these dots. And then for the last one, I've got a ruby red that I'm going to try. So these are like, oh, I haven't even used this one before. So these are basically like inks. They're like super glossy, sort of metallic-y almost, but not really. They're supposed to like give a lot of shine, so I don't know if they're gonna make for good gems, but we're gonna find out. Okay, so that's creating a really deep color, which is good. I was worried of each of the gems, you know, where all the color is now. You know, I kind of want to exaggerate some of the glowing light effects, so I'm going to use some crystal blue from War Painter on that little sapphire guy. For the green emeralds, I think actually we've got a little hydro turquoise still. I think I'd like to use that up there. So again, kind of just like opposite of the black undercoat. Keep it fairly small. And then for the red, I don't have anything red out yet. But I'm going to use a little bit of Army Painter Pure Red for this. Using Void Shield Blue again, we're going to go back over that sapphire and really into the spot that we just painted earlier with the crystal blue, and we're just giving like a little scratch, a little tiny dot of that. Then over the green ones, I've got some elemental bolt that I'm going to use there. I have some out already, but I did really kind of water that stuff down a lot, so just get that little dot out. And then we did pure red earlier for the gem. I'm going to go back to that AK 11079, the burnt orange, from back at the very start when I was doing the beak earlier, and I'm going to use that as kind of like this last little highlight color in the top right of these two rubies. And then after that's done, the last thing that we want to do on those gems, and again, I'm not an expert, I'm not really even very good at gems, is we want to do a little dot of white. Now the white is going to be kind of counterintuitive. We've been doing, dark in the bottom left and lighter in the top right. But what we want actually for this white is we want this white to be in the very bottom left with the black segment that we were doing earlier. And we don't want a huge deal, so actually I'm switching to a finer brush here. And let me. Okay, and then so since I'm not super good at staying in the lines, I gotta go back over and kind of re-outline all these gems. So I'm re-outlining them in the highlight color for the metals that they're in. So this is the copper, so I'm using the bronze paint for this little outline here. And then, alright, finally, our last effort, before I call this boy done enough, is that shining silver that I put down earlier. Gonna get that all up in my dry brush and kind of scrape that back out. And I'm going over the metals. I'm trying to avoid the gems a little bit, but it doesn't really hurt if I do kind of brush a tiny bit of metallic onto them, considering it'll kind of help their gloss effect a bit. But this is really just to kind of help those metals pop a little bit more. It's not about the gems so much. Cool, and there we have it. That's my pink horror for now. I think I'm calling it quits, and thanks for watching. Have a good night.
We're just trying to enjoying the hobby rather than everything having to be perfect or professional level. We're just trying to show people that this is a fun thing. It's not so serious.
Practice gets yourself down better.
Weeps! What is wrong with this guy?